If I were paying someone's agency to manage my ads and manage my marketing, understanding that there's no guarantee that it's going to be hockey stick all the entire time, but that we
Mhm.
can sit in what didn't work right or the way that we expected, and we can find out, we can figure it out without losing a lot of time and effort. I think that's a really
Yeah.
amazing trait.
And I think that's what makes a really good partner, really, at that point. And I don't like to say that we're a vendor or like a contractor for clients. I really do like the word partner in this scenario because I really do feel that we are one.
Welcome to Partnerships for Profit, the podcast where we bring you inside the world of joint ventures, strategic partnerships, and powerful collaborations. Each episode, you'll dive into conversations with top entrepreneurs, visionaries, and business leaders, unlocking the secrets to building profitable relationships that drive growth and success. Whether you're looking to expand your network, find new referral partners, or scale your business, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
This is the Partnership for Profit podcast. I'm your host, Jim McIver. I'm actually one of the many hosts that you'll have here at Leduc Entertainment. And today, I have the pleasure of meeting an amazing professional, Ameet Khabra of Hopskip Media. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great, doing great. I love this. It's the start of the week, but it's the end of a month, and we're going into the last quarter. So this is, at least to me and a lot of people that I work with and partner with, this is like the race to like get everything else done on the end of the year list as far as our goals.
I like to liken it to the Olympics.
Yeah.
So Black Friday is like the Olympics for people like myself. So I'm just like it's the race to the finish now. Like we're going double time, getting everything done, making sure our clients are good to go. So this is like the best and the most stressful time of the year.
I get it. I get it. Do you typically turn out a lot more business, or you get on new people towards the end of the year, or are you kind of finishing out? Um,
Yeah, I actually, it's funny. I was actually looking at data because I was talking to my sales manager about this not too long ago because he was like, I'm a little scared. People are quiet. And I'm like, October is our biggest month every single year. And then he just sat there and stared at me. I'm like, just watch. Like, just watch. It's going to be fine. We're okay. I'm like, I have literally data from 2018 that tells me that I have nothing to worry about. I'm like, if
mhm.
this is the outlier, then this is the outlier. But I'm like, I am telling you, I am not scared. And he was just like, okay,
Mm.
fine. Neither am I then. And I'm like, okay.
Nice, nice.
Because everybody's kind of getting all their stuff together. They're realizing that they have Black Friday, Cyber Monday deals that they want to do, Christmas, and they're like,
That's right.
we need to find an agency to help us with that because internally we won't be able to move fast enough. Whereas for us, like this is like something that we already have like in an SOP. We're just like, give us this, this, and this, and we're good to go. We're running off to the races. So, yeah, a lot of people usually September tends to be a little bit more um, louder, I guess, in a sense, like more active, and it's been a little quiet this year. So my suspicion is that October is going to be the really loud month where everybody's just like, oh, now we're panicking. We need someone here.
I love that. So you're going to be pretty busy for the next 3 months. That sounds awesome.
Oh gosh, yeah, it's the best.
Cool. So I understand Hopskip Media. You're a full service digital marketing agency. Tell me a little bit about everything that you do, who you work with. Where are you based out of, actually?
So we're a Canadian company, originally from Edmonton, Alberta. And now I live in British Columbia. So, I mean, it really depends on where you want to say we are. We're completely remote. So, really, at this point, it's really hard to answer that question because I'm like, wherever I want to be. Like, that's kind of where we're based. But yeah, so we're an online marketing agency that specializes in pay-per-click advertising. So that's Google, Meta ads,
Hmm.
anything outside of those two. We do have some knowledge of it, but usually we'll kind of have like other experts kind of come in and help because my core competency comes in with lead generation for Google, but one of our analysts, his core competency is e-commerce on Meta. So then we kind of just kind of like figure out who the skill sets are and then kind of put them there. Um, my personal philosophy and one that we actually have internally is that I want to be great at one thing, not mediocre at everything, which is why pay-per-click is the choice. It kind of just uh, I like to say that it fell into my lap, even though it kind of didn't, but also kind of did at the same time. And I just ran with it, and now I'm 16 years in, and I've looked back a couple times, but I don't have any intentions of quitting anytime soon.
That's the entrepreneur journey. It's like you're great at it, you get in some good traction, then the journey is like this and this, and then there's the day you wake up like, you know what? Forget this whole thing, man. Have you ever gone
Yeah.
through that before?
Oh my gosh, like almost a couple times a year, I would have to say. Like,
Yeah.
there's been some really horrible moments that we've had, and like I've actually had like my team just be like, "You can just walk away. It's fine. Like it's okay." And I'm too stubborn on that front. I need to leave. If I'm going to leave, I need to leave on my terms.
Right.
I can't have it dictated by a negative thing that happened, and I'm not somebody who walks away from a challenge either, which might be a great thing or a horrible thing about me. It's a matter of opinion, I guess, at this point. But yeah, wanting to walk away isn't a completely new feeling, but it's one that I tend to avoid.
Yeah, that's awesome that you have a good way of pulling yourself out of that. Actually, talk about that. We've got all of like everybody in our circle. They're all small business owners and entrepreneurs. What are some of the ways that you pull yourself from those? The valleys. We got the peaks and valleys, but the valleys when we're just like, man, I just don't know. What are some ways that you pulled yourself out and kept pressing along?
I think for the last, I want to say for the last 2 years has probably been I mean, maybe not the best thing to admit on a podcast, but like I feel like the last 2 years were probably the worst of our history, and that's because we had a business manager hacking that happened in June of 2022,
You know what?
and that decimated literally, I'm not even joking, 40% of my business within like a month, like gone. And like it was just it was a really horrible time, and it was something that we couldn't have avoided. It was just it was really, in reality, if you think about it, it was an attack on Meta. We just ended up in the crossfire. Like that was just kind of it. And it was an 11-month ordeal just to get all the accounts back, all the money back, and it was $50,000. And like a lot of the clients were sitting there looking at us going, okay, well, you're going to pay it, right? And I'm like, no, I'm not liable here. But then there's like this guilt, right? Because I very much run my business from my heart, right? So then I just sat there and I was like, okay, like if I have to, I will. Like I'm not going to walk away from it completely. And I remember a lot of friends of mine had reached out, and they were just like, in times that somebody else probably would have walked away and just been like, this isn't my problem. They're like, you stuck around and you kept on going.
Right.
And I think for me, it was one that I knew that I had a duty for my clients to get everything back. And I knew that there was no way that I'd be able to go to sleep knowing that. And then from there on forward, I think it just became more mindset work. Like I've been very, very, especially this year, very, very focused on my mind and my physical health more than anything else. And I think that's what really actually helps me quite a bit, is just making these things non-negotiable. Like I have to go to the gym Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Saturday's a bonus day if I really want to go. And
Nice.
now it's become a non-negotiable at this point because I'm like, well, I already do the 3 days. I have to make it harder for myself at some point, right?
Yeah.
Every morning I talk about what I'm grateful for. Every night I talk about what I'm grateful for. I have affirmations that are in my head. And that's what I found that really helped, especially if I do them in bed quietly, just in my head and keep on repeating. The anxiety that I usually feel before I get out of bed is gone. Like I haven't been anxious in weeks. And that's just literally me going, I'm at peace. Everything's okay. And just like completely like getting to a point where you're just like, yeah, you know what? Everything is okay. Like, what am I causing all of this stress for? And I think that's been like the biggest game changer for me. But then the other part of it is like allowing myself to sit in it. Like a lot of people just have this notion of like, oh, I'm anxious today, or I'm like not feeling great, or I'm unhappy, or XYZ has happened and now I feel like shit. Now I have to get out of it. And I don't believe in that philosophy, because I think you move on too quickly and you haven't healed at all. And then you end up in that same spot anyway, right? Because it's like almost like building a muscle. Like you go for the 10-pound weight and suddenly you're going for 50. Like it's just not going to work. You're not going to be able to push it.
Right.
Right. So it's the same thing. Like sometimes I just let myself have that bad time. And it was a couple weeks ago where I remembered looking at my team and I was like, it's almost like there's this black cloud just following me everywhere. And they're like, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I'm going to let it just do its thing. Because I'm like, it's a cloud. It's going to move. Right. And that's like something that I think it's bison. I think it's bison that have realized that rainstorms, they get through them if they actually just hit it versus running away. Because they're like, it's already going to catch us. So we might as well just run through the rainstorm, deal with that mess, and then at the end of it, we get through it faster. And I remember hearing that story about them, and I was like, yeah, that makes a lot more sense. Like, what logic have I used to run away from all of my problems, right? Because eventually they're going to catch up to you. They're either going to solidify in your head eventually at some point, and then there's really no fixing it. I'd rather just sit there in the negative energy and let it just like do its thing, and then maybe it might motivate me to do something else.
Right.
So yeah, sorry, that's my long-winded answer for you there.
No, I love it. This is definitely your commercial right there. Look at the thought process. You actually made me think. I'm visualizing it as you're mentioning it, and I'm thinking, you know what? A lot of times when we're running from our problems, we're probably running in the same direction as the cloud. Like the storm is coming and we're here, and we're like, oh shit, we got to run this way. Little do we know, the cloud is going the same direction, so it lasts a lot longer. I actually,
Yeah, and that's why I've been using the cloud as like the metaphor lately a lot, where I'm like, it's a cloud, it's just following me. So I remember I just sat there and I was like, yeah, it was meant to happen.
Mhm.
The summer wasn't necessarily the kindest to me in terms of family and stuff like that. So I was just like, it was meant to happen.
Yeah.
Like I was avoiding it. I was trying to get into work and just like be like, let's be focused. And really in that moment, I should have just kind of let myself have that week or two or even that month just to like cry it out and just feel really shitty about it.
Hmm.
And I likely wouldn't have had those weeks in the middle of August, September, just going, I don't want to do anything, guys. And then them sitting there going, well, how do we help you? And I'm like, just keep on doing your jobs and I'm going to keep on trying. That is all we have to do here, right? And that worked out perfectly for all of us. But like, I understand that some people aren't as lucky as me. They don't necessarily have a team behind them that can actually do that. So like, for me, it's nighttime then. I cried out during the night and then I would wake up the next morning. I'm like, okay, I feel better.
Let's
Let's
go.
go.
Let's
And I would
go.
just keep on doing that cycle, right? And I know even there, it's not the healthiest, but like that was the best version that I had for myself, especially when I was by myself. But at least you're like attacking it and then you're kind of avoiding it for the day and then you're attacking it again and you're avoiding it and it works a little bit faster than just completely avoiding it at the very least.
Right. I like your way of reframing those. Like I saw something recently on LinkedIn. Says, how do I reframe having a bad day? I think of it as this is the price I pay for all the good ones. I'm like, okay, that's a cool way of reframing it a little bit.
That's totally fair. For me, I just sit there and I try to figure out what actually went well. Like,
Ooh,
it couldn't have been a completely bad day.
mm,
Like, there's just, I mean, bad things happen for sure,
right.
right? And I've had those moments, but like, I sit there and I look at them and I'm like, I have my family. They're obsessed with me. I don't know why. Like, like they just like you could tell like maybe they not may not verbalize it, but you can tell my family loves the shit out of me. Like, and I just like sometimes sit there and I'm like, why? I don't get it. I have two dogs. They're happy and healthy. A vet told me that they shouldn't have even made it to their second birthday. They're turning 10 next month, like in
Wow.
October. No, not October. Sorry, November.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, actually, yeah, technically next
Technically,
month.
next.
Like they're turning 10. Like I'm like I have so much more to be happy about, right? That I even if I had this bad moment, 100% I want to feel it, but I can't sit there and be like my entire life is like a wash.
Right.
Like, and I think a lot of people go down that route where they're like, "Oh, this is not worth it. My business isn't worth it because this bad day happened, or my entire life wasn't, it hasn't panned out the way that it has." And I mean, all of us have those feelings, and naturally, especially as business owners, we want to be at a certain point, and we never get there usually, because we always constantly just want more and more and more, and that's just, I guess, like a consistent trait between all entrepreneurs, really, at this point. But then I sit there and I look at it, and I'm like, no, I'm highly decorated. I'm globally known for what I do, and I'm like, yeah, maybe the other pieces haven't fallen into place, but I'm like all of this other stuff that I wanted so desperately years ago, I'm getting without doing very much, and I'm like, that's still something really great. So then I just go back and I just think about what went well that day, and usually it's like I got to wake up that morning. Like a lot of people don't get that opportunity.
I think that's a great quality for people to have in terms of, let's say you're looking for someone who's going to be managing their ad spend and managing their campaigns. I completely understand with A/B testing, you have to see some things that are working and which are not, and having someone who can kind of, almost like a trader, kind of go through, I won't say unemotionally, but have emotions regulated around how things are happening in the physical world is something at least I would definitely want if I were paying someone's agency to manage my ads and manage my marketing, understanding that there's no guarantee that it's going to be hockey stick all the entire time, but that we
Hmm.
can sit in what didn't work right or the way that we expected, and we can find out, we can figure it out without losing a lot of time and effort. I think that's a really
Yeah.
amazing trait.
And I think that's what makes a really good partner, really, at that point. And I don't like to say that we're a vendor or like a contractor for clients. I really do like the word partner in this scenario because I really do feel that we are one. So we have like a director of sales and marketing. He's also like the client retention manager, really, at this point, too.
Hmm.
And he literally will sit down with clients every single month and just go over everything. What are your questions? What are your concerns? Let's fill those gaps in your education so that way you can actually ask us better questions later.
Hmm.
actually hold us accountable properly.
Nice.
If something goes off, we'll sit there and actually try to figure it out. And it's always like a collaborative experience, and I've always loved that. But then the other half of it is that I really do promote, especially over the last 2 years, which have been freaking horrible, promoting like just taking the time off. So like my director of sales went through something not great with his family, and I remember him sitting there just going, "I'm not feeling well," and I'm like, "Okay, well, I guess it's time for you to take a week off." And he just sat there and looked at me, and he's like, "Huh?" And then like every Friday, I look at him, I'm like, "If you have the opportunity to leave early, go." And he'll just sit there and be like, "What?" And I'm like, "Why? Like,
Wow.
we're not. I have to like we're not going to make that one change that is going to catapult that client to the stratosphere within that afternoon. Like it's just not going to happen. It's consistent, deliberate, actions that we're making to get us to a certain place. So then I just sit there and I'm like, why are you here? Like, why are you still? And like, you can pound the pavement. I'm totally happy for that. Like, that's kind of what I'm paying you for. But I'm like, at the same time, I'm like, if you're not good yourself, I can't imagine that you're going to be great for our clients. I can't imagine that you're going to be great for our accounts. I can't, like, that's just not, I just don't believe that anymore. And I used to for so long, in the last year especially, is when my mind has quite shifted quite a bit, where I sit there and I look at everybody. I'm like, no, take the time off. Your work will be significantly better if you are well rested and your mind feels free. Because I know that the quality of my work has increased the moment that I actually started sleeping more. I know that I've gotten increasingly happier because I sleep more. And like it was such a weird little thing where people would be like, "Yeah, you just need like 6 hours." I used to think I only needed 4.
Same.
Like I used to just keep on running, and then eventually I was like, "Okay, let's just increase this, keep on increasing it." And naturally, like all of these wonderful things that I had always dreamed of have happened. Like I got top 100 worldwide last year. I didn't even expect it. I remember I
Wow.
saw it and I just sat there and I'm like, "How did that happen?"
How about
Like
that?
this year, I could almost guarantee I'm gonna get top 50. Like, and I haven't really done much more work. It's that like I've just allowed myself to rest, and those ideas that people really, really love and have been like getting behind me for, those have come out of that rest. And like now I'm getting the recognition that I've been wanting for so long, and it almost feels unearned because I was like, well, I all I did was sleep. Like all I did was
That's the key to quality work, apparently.
it really I think it's part of it at the very least. Obviously being obsessive doesn't
Mm-hmm.
really allow for rest, and that I think is also like that part where that's really what marks like great to excellence, is just being like so obsessed with something that you just know the ins and outs of it. But if you're constantly, it's like studying, if you're constantly reading something, you're not going to retain stuff after a certain point. I think it's like after like I want to say like an hour and a half or something like that. I have to double check my work, but like, or the research, but like it's an hour and a half after your brain just kind of stops retaining stuff. Like you actually really do need to take those breaks every 90 minutes, because otherwise you're just not going to retain anything. So I take that almost the same approach to my work now, is just reading all of these studies and going, oh, okay, so this is what works here. Let me try that. And then I manipulate it to work for me.
Nice, nice. Well, since we're talking about that in terms of partnering, tell us a little bit about like who are the people that you partner with? Who are the people that you help? What are the pains and problems that they have? Because I'm pretty sure the average person, myself included, would think, okay, well, you do digital ads. Okay, it seems pretty cut and dry. But tell me a little bit more. What's outside of the average, the
Yeah,
layman's?
I feel like there it's almost it's really funny because within the industry there's just like there's like a segment of the segment that's already PPC. So then you've got the LinkedIn guys, you've got the social people, you've got the Google ads, and within that you've got lead gen versus e-commerce, and then you've just completely opened everything up. And it's just kind of funny where I feel like right now the divide is really like Meta ads against Google ads,
Okay.
where a lot of people are more likely to go down the Meta route because the platform is just a little bit easier to understand. It's a bit more like you turn this on, you add in your audiences, and you kind of just let it. And I'm simplifying this, but like you kind of just let it go. Where Google Ads have much more levers and variables that you have to kind of account for. We have to look at like your ad scheduling. What devices are people looking at stuff? Um, what locations are sitting there, what are your keywords, what are the search intent, like what's your audience, like there's just so
Hmm.
much in there where I feel like a lot of people, and especially early on in my career, uh I think the reason I got to where I got to is because I chose the harder thing without realizing that I had chose the harder thing.
Huh.
So a lot of people would come over and be like, okay, well, we don't want to do this, like there's just too much. And I think that's the one thing that a lot of people don't quite understand, especially when we're talking about Google Ads, is that like there's just so many variables that if you don't understand one of them, you could really decimate an account. Like I've watched
Wow.
things happen when it was just like one slight error, and the moment you removed it, you're like, oh, it all worked. Like, and it's the years of experience where you figure that out. So like at one point somebody had put it's called a target CPA, which is your target cost per acquisition,
Right.
essentially. You need to give Google a little bit of data first before it can actually figure that out. So what I like to do if I'm using that target CPA is I'll let the account run for the month, the 2, maybe 3 months or something once we actually have it stabilized. And let's say the CPA is about $50 or something like that. What I will do is I'll actually tell Google that I want my CPA to be like maybe $55 instead. And what that actually does is that it allows Google to kind of have a little bit of wiggle room to find people who might be slightly higher than that 50, but not like astronomically higher. So then that way you're not missing out on business. What we're looking for is the average of 50. We're not looking for 50 right across the board. So some might come in at 55, some might come in at 35. We want that average to kind of come in. But a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll be like, no, I already know that I want $25 or for my CPA, and that's what they'll put in. And what that does is it throttles the entire account because Google goes, well, we can't find these people for you. Like you haven't given us the data that actually tells us that you can get a a lead or something along those lines at that 25 CPA or 50. Sorry, I completely changed the numbers halfway through that, but that 50 CPA. But also, like, we don't know what they look like. So if we're not giving them that information by letting them collect that data, then we're not able to kind of come back. And that's where the pieces kind of come in, where people will be like, yeah, I can run them. And I'm like, go ahead. But I'm like, guaranteed you're going to end up doing something that you think makes logical sense. Because obviously telling Google that I only want to spend $50 makes logical sense. But if you don't give it information, it's not going to be able to know how to do that. So it's those random little things. And the moment I removed that CPA, I think they ended up like converting at like a 20% versus zero. Like it was just absolutely
Oh,
crazy.
wow.
And then eventually I put that CPA back in because I was like, okay, now we have this information. Google already knows who's too high, who's too low. They're going to find us the middle now, right? Like we
Right.
gave it its data and they like literally I think they're not with us anymore in truth, but like I think they're still running the account as is. And I just and like it hurts a little bit because you're just like, yeah, I created the account, I put in all this work, I did all of this, and you took it and just like
Hmm.
left it. But at the same time, I think it's like a mark of a great analyst too, where it's just
Right.
like if you can take my work and continue to make it better or possibly just continue to make it work the way that it has been, I did my job. Like I don't know, I don't think there's a greater compliment to myself at that point.
That is cool. That is. So it's people like that, you see that you really transform their business. Are they coming into you like because they've got a problem? Are they come in net new, like, hey, I need marketing done? Or have they tried a lot of things and they're just like, I need help?
I feel like the place that we found a bit more success is the people who have already been advertising and just not necessarily happy. Either they're running the account themselves or they're working with another agency and they're just going, I don't know if this is actually doing the best that it could. Is usually kind of the conversations that we have with a lot of people where they're just like, we don't, either we feel like we're not being seen by our vendor or we feel like it could be better, one or the
Okay.
other. Like it's always either a communication issue or a communication to what the results should be. So it's always like something communication related. And then with the business owners who are running their own accounts, obviously, like everybody wants to do what they're good at, right? Like a plumber doesn't want to be running Google Ads accounts. They want to be doing the plumbing job. That's what they got into.
Hmm.
Just like how I don't want to do social media because I'm not a social media person. So I have someone who does social media for me because I trust that she's better at than I am.
Hmm.
It's very much kind of like that same notion. We do work with people who have never advertised before. It's just a little bit harder on that front, and not in the sense that it can't work. It's just in the sense of it's going to take us longer to figure that out. So you really need to be committed to the process at that point. Like you can't sit there and be like 30 days in, oh, I haven't gotten anything, I'm going to run away. Like that's just not those aren't the partnerships that we work really well with because then at that point if your business is reliant on these ads, um, I think you have a bigger issue really at that point, right? So then that's something that we have to kind of go back and dissect.
Right.
So it's like if you're already running ads and you're like, I'm kind of happy, but not really, or they're not really working, then that's more of a conversation we'd like to have.
Got it. Got it. What's a way that you turn these initial meetings into successful partnerships? Do you have like a strategy that's across the board, or is it? Can you describe that to me?
I think it's tailored per because every account, like admittedly, um, maybe it's the same industry, but competition changes when you change locations, right? Like you've got different competitors in different spaces, you've got different search volume in different places, different lingo, all of these things. So then for us, I think it kind of it becomes more of a customized type of conversation of just like trying to figure out where does their knowledge start and where does it end,
Hmm.
and then how do we fill in the rest of that if it needs to be filled in. So that's where I think it really makes a difference, because if that person is running their own ads and they have no knowledge of what's going on, then we kind of have to go backwards and be like, okay, well, here are the reasons why you should trust us, but then also like we'll also do like here are the reasons maybe you shouldn't. Like we'll give you both sides of the story, which I know seems illogical, but like that's just who I am as a human being. Like I want to hear both sides of the story, and that's why I think I'm such like, not to sound cocky, but that's why I think I'm such a great analyst, is because I'll sit there and listen to every side. The decision that I'm making is a decision that I'm making. I firmly know that because I've listened to everything. So we want to also give the client that opportunity as well. Here's the good, here's the bad. You make that decision. Do you feel good being with us, or do you not feel great? If not, then we'll help you find someone else if we can. Otherwise, you're welcome to obviously go find your own at that point. But like, yeah, I feel like it depends on that person. If they've already got a negative view, then we kind of have to go more positive and be like, okay, well, we can help fix this. And if they have a positive view, then we kind of have to regulate them and be like, okay, let's go back into center somewhere here, so that way we can kind of just make sure that we're um, one creating um, a relationship that's realistic in terms of making sure that we understand what your results or the results that you're looking for, but also that we can actually provide them depending on the ad spend. So then we'll have, yeah, a lot of conversations. There's a lot of variables when we look at Google Ads, unfortunately and fortunately at the same time.
Yeah, I know it's a big thing to wrap our head around. That's something that people really should not try on their own. I mean, I'm teetered with it, so I realize agencies
Yeah,
are very.
it's very complicated. I feel like it's very, very easy to lose money on the platform. And like I've done it myself, of client money too. Like I hate admitting it, but it was like starting of my career. I didn't know any better. I was just learning, and it's all trials and tribulations at that point. But like,
Right.
you can dump, like even yeah, you can dump a ton of money into something and just get nothing out of it. It's just absolutely crazy. So be if you're running the ads by yourself, just be a little careful, or if you're thinking about doing it, just be a little careful. Um, there's some great people online, especially on LinkedIn. Like the community on LinkedIn is probably one of the best that I've ever seen for PPC. It just in terms of learning and then having people actually wanting to answer your questions. That's a really great place to go. And same with Twitter or X, I guess at this point. Um, if you're looking for further guidance and you're not really quite ready to like actually work with a vendor or a partner or whatever, then just asking for advice. Like everybody is really, really great about just answering those questions and being like, here's this information that we want everybody to have. Because truthfully, we just want everybody to have the information.
Okay. How do you so how have you connected with like high level collaborators in your industry, or and like what's the most valuable partnership that you've formed, to date?
Oh gosh. I think for me, I have this constant. It's not. I feel like it's almost a need to a certain degree because I just keep on doing it, but I just end up in rooms that I probably shouldn't be, and I just.
Yeah.
It's like literally, and it's starting. It wasn't even a plan. It just kind of happened. I was alone.
Hmm.
I was the only PPC person in the city at that time that I knew of, right? And yeah, it was just one of those moments where I had like carved out my name. Everybody in that one particular city was like, Ameet's the one who does ads, and that's it. Like nobody else in this city does ads, basically, which was completely untrue. But
Hmm.
we didn't know who those people were really at that time. So I would just walk into like UI, UX, web dev, social media content, SEO, like anything that was like tangential to a certain degree.
Hmm.
That's where I would end up, and people would look at me and be like, "You're not supposed to be here," and I'm like, "Do we not technically do the same thing?" In a sense, like don't we like we all work on the internet, we're all doing marketing, we're all should be data driven. Shouldn't I be here? And then after several months everybody was like, oh yeah, this makes sense for her to be here. And then I wouldn't show up and they'd be like, where'd you go? And I was like, I did my job. I'm like, now you notice that I'm not around. And eventually I just kept on doing that. And it was just sheerly, honestly fun for me and just finding people to hang out with. But what ended up happening is that it started connecting me with people. So then I just started doing that online, again, unknowingly. Like I wasn't really thinking about it. It was just like these places where I'd be like, I need help. Who wants to help me? And I think publicly saying that and not being ashamed of it was one of the things that drew me into like the current PPC community that I'm really involved in, which is um, kind of like the circle of the top 50, top 100 people, which is weird, just genuinely weird for me to like ever, like I just never thought I'd get to a place where I'd be considered one of these people really at this point. But like it just kind of happened where I allowed myself to be vulnerable and just literally be like, I don't know what I'm doing here. Can someone please help me? And everybody was like, okay, let's teach you. And then naturally, what ends up happening is as you're upskilling, you're also increasing your own profile and all of these things. And then all these bigger brands start seeing you because you're interacting with these people now more on a colleague basis versus like a mentor mentee. So yeah, my, if I were to recommend anything to anybody, I would literally just be like, find where like everybody else that's like maybe a step or two higher than you and just walk into those rooms and be like, I have no idea. Can someone please tell me how to get to the next level?
That's
And like people more often than not, like at least maybe I got lucky. Like maybe my community's like just so welcoming, but like everybody was there. Like they all never, I don't think I've had anyone ever say I'm not going to help you or like ghost me or anything like that.
they do say that
Yeah,
Canada
I
has
don't
more
think so.
well-mannered people than here in the States.
Well, this is North America. This is like globally
Oh,
though, right?
really?
Like most of the people that I interact with are usually in the States.
Hmm.
Like when I was part of the Google, I was part of a Google ambassador program back in 2014. There was 25 of us in North America. Only 5 of us were Canadian. The rest was all like just the States, right? So that I mean, like population wise, you guys are like what 10 times bigger than us or something like that, like significantly bigger than us. Like California is bigger than us, like population wise. So like I mean, it made sense, but at the same time, like it's just I don't know. I feel like I just kind of got lucky, but this group of people is just they're just something else. They're just willing to help, and I think that's just kind of across the board. I'm hoping.
Hmm.
Maybe somebody might prove me wrong. I'm hoping it's across the board, but usually when you get to a place where you feel like you're the mentor, you're okay with giving that information because you already know that you're on this pedestal. You don't, nobody's going to knock you down. Like that's something that you allow to happen.
Right.
So for me, when people come to me and they ask me for information, I'm like, there's no way you can knock me down. I won't allow you to.
Mm.
So I'm like, I'm going to stay here forever. It's always going to be like this. So I'm like, go ahead, take all the information in my head. You can steal the sauce, but you can't make the recipe. Or I mean, you can steal the recipe, but the sauce won't taste the same.
Ah.
So I just take that philosophy and I'm like, go ahead.
Hmm.
Like the people who are meant to actually understand it and have it stick will have it stick. But those are just a rare few people. So I think that
Nice.
I just sit there and think about it from that standpoint, especially when we talk about competition. And I'm like, I'm not worried. I don't know why. Maybe I'm a little too cocky. Who knows?
No, I call that an abundance mindset. That's actually one thing I do as a sales professional. You know, a lot of people know my entire industry to be very, cutthroat and every guy for himself and all that. I'm like, dude, there's enough money out here
Hmm.
for all of us. And training and development is
That's my
actually,
favorite line.
yeah, yeah.
It's my favorite
It's
line
so
because I sit there
true.
and I'm like, there's so much money out there.
Yeah. There's enough for more than enough for all of us. So, and actually, training and developing and helping other people has actually helped make me a top rep at companies that I've worked at, and even starting into my own business, because you learn so much as you teach and you help, and I think that's really translated, on my side, conversely.
And I also think it makes you better because then there's going to be that one random question that you're not going to know. And it's happened to me more times than I'd like to count, really, at this point, where I'd sit there and be like, that's actually a very interesting problem that you've had because no account is the same, right? Like just like with you, no person is the same. No business owner is ever going to be the same that you're selling to. So like, yeah, you might have your tips and your tricks, but like that person still needs a customized approach to a certain degree. So then for me, it's just like those moments where I get to stretch my brain a little bit further and be like, okay, so let me run through a bunch of scenarios that I've never thought of before.
Right, right.
So I feel like it makes me just want like that tiny bit better as well. So like for me, I will take every opportunity to guide someone as much as I possibly can without it like completely like messing up my schedule, obviously, right? But
Right.
like if I have that opportunity, I'm gonna take it. When someone's like, "Can I pick your brain?" I know that everybody hates that phrasing. I will take the meeting.
Mhm.
I always have, I always will. I mean, admittedly now I limit them because a lot of people tend to ask, but like if it's someone who's consistently there, who's just like being like, "Oh, Meet, I read this article. What do you think about this?" Or like, that's how we actually found one of my interns. Is like he literally would just send me messages and be like, "I read this article. I thought about this," and he's like, "You said this thing in your stories the other day. I took it to Reddit," and he's like, "This is the poll that came out," and I was like sitting there and I was like, "You're kind of amazing. Like I would love to spend more time with you."
Yeah.
Because you actually have that need. You want to, not only are you bringing me more value, but you're bringing a different perspective that I never even thought about. So yeah, if anyone's starting and they're listening to this, I think that's a really great way to kind of do it. My test usually is like come check in a month if they ask for a job, and then I sit around waiting if they're actually going to come back in a month.
Nice.
And then not only that, what do they do in that month frame, right? So the opportunities that I've gotten, even now, like I had a friend, I was actually talking to her about it, and she was like, "Oh, I'm gonna end up. It's not scheduled quite yet, but I'm supposed to end up on like this really, really it's quite meaningful to me. It's the largest like town hall type of scenario for our community,
Mhm.
and it's led by literally the man that I say that I'm gonna marry, but he's married with kids in Belgium somewhere. But like, I just make the joke where I'm like, I'm his next wife. Like,
That's
let's just face it, I'm his next wife. Like, his mind is just something different. And I told a friend about that, and she was like, "Oh yeah, I got tagged on that post too, but they never reached out to me." And I sat there and I'm like, I reached out to them. I gave them topic ideas. And then I just sat there and waited, and then I followed up, and she just went, "Huh?" And I'm like, if the door's open, I'm walking right in. I'm not gonna let them be like, "Oh, come in." Like, you kind of have to take those steps and be like, "Yeah, I want this. I'm gonna make it known to you now." And I think those are two different mindsets as well that you have to work in. But like, if you have the opportunity for someone to even crack that door open, run through that door, do it. I hate the notion of people just getting so like scared about what someone's going to say to them. Like even the topic ideas I had, I don't think they were any great. And maybe he was sitting there laughing about them behind the closed doors, but am I still going to get that booking? 100%. I don't care. I don't care how I got it. I just want it. Like, so I think it's just one of those moments where you kind of
I
really
like
have to sit there and be like, how do I further this along? Who do I talk to? And that's really like kind of my game in terms of getting into it, where it was like, who's going to help, actually, who's willing to help me, and how do I continue to work with them, but make it mutually beneficial?
I love that. Well, great. Well, having said
Yeah,
that, we
I
learned a
try to make it
whole.
equitable everywhere I go.
Nice. Nice, nice. That's really great. You've got some amazing ideas. I feel like I've gotten to know you and well, how you run your business. Honestly, I feel like I've never taken a look at the website or how you're doing things. I'm like that personality is somebody that I would love to collaborate with sometime. So, having said that,
I feel like my social content does better than our website
yeah,
because of
because
all of
that's
this.
I'm the face, I'm the action to it. So, having said that, I want to know. So, how do people work with you? How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so we basically kind of have like two core services, I guess, at this point. One's an audit. So if you're running your own account or you have an agency running for the or running it, and you're just like, oh, I don't know,
Mhm.
we can provide audits. We have two. We have like a basic one where we'll just kind of glean over everything and just be like, here are the problems. And then the larger audit, we're literally getting very, very nitpicky, but then also providing a move forward plan as well. Um, and then the other half is, or the other side of it, which is frankly my preference, is just the monthly management. I love, I don't know, there's just something about watching an account go from zero to like wherever it's supposed to go that's just so satisfying. And we've had clients literally, I think it's been like 8.5 years with some of them. Like
Wow.
they just like we have great retention rates. Like I like when I say it, we're pretty good at our jobs. I genuinely mean it. Like I'm not saying it from a cocky place. I'm saying it. I have data to prove
That's awesome.
we actually are pretty good at this.
Mhm.
Which I mean, I guess makes me nerdier than most people because I'm literally just sitting there just looking at our data, going, yeah, I can make these claims completely. Um, but yeah, I think it's just like this notion that we really just I really am focused on being the best at one thing versus the best at a bunch of random stuff. And that's really echoed throughout the agency. So I think they're just dialed into what they're supposed to be dialed in. That makes it really, really great. But monthly management, I think, is like probably the most fun because then at least we get to see what we did month over month, but then we also have those conversations with the client and we get to hear how it actually made a difference in their business. And I think that's really like the satisfying part of them being like, yeah, we increased our revenue by X percentage over the month. And it's just like, oh great, we were part of that. Right?
Yeah.
Like that was a really cool moment. Um we were part of getting like a mayor elected a couple years ago, and he was the first minority and also the first Punjabi mayor, and I'm also Punjabi. So like for me, that was really, really
Wow.
meaningful because I was like, I got to be part of that. Like that was history being made, and I got to be part of that, to the point where they actually credited us for like most of the success of that campaign, because they're like, you guys moved so quick. You did it exactly the way that it needed to be done. We sat there and looked at like sectors of the city, and we're like, okay, where do we start conversations and how do we piss people off and then kind of get them to like interact with us, right?
Right.
It was amazing. It was amazing. Like that probably is like the single best thing that's ever happened in my career. Like getting someone elected was just the wildest thing. So now I'm like almost at this point where I'm like, how do we do this provincially and then nationally? Like, how do I keep on moving that up? And that monthly management is where that kind of helped us, because we were able to start really, really early and figure out what that game plan was going to be for him to get him to that finish line. And it's the same thing with business owners. We know where the starting point is. We know where we want to end by the end of the year. Now let's put a plan together and actually do this together, versus like an audit where it's just, here you go off. And I mean, they have their place, of course. I love audits, but monthly management is truly where I love the work that we do there.
Good. And finally, how can we get in touch with you? What are your social links? Let's put them right here below.
Yeah. I'm the AdWords girl everywhere on the internet. So back in the day, Google Ads was called Google AdWords. I picked up the moniker and I refuse to let it go, regardless of how outdated it is now.
Yeah.
Some people in the
AdWords
industry
girl, I
don't
like
like it so much. Yeah, and I was like, no, I'm too sentimental. I'm like, my love came from AdWords. It wasn't Google Ads at that time. Like, I fell in love with AdWords. So I'm going to keep it that way. So it's the AdWords girl, and then hopskipmedia.com.
Got it. That makes you one of the OGs. If you have that, you caught it in the beginning and you have it forever. Like, okay, she's definitely been in the industry for a while. Because do you even know what AdWords are, Zoomer? No.
That's the thing. But then there's the counter argument. See, like the positive and the negative, right? Where we have to go back into center, where people might think that I might not have moved on with the times, right? They're just thinking that I'm kind of thinking about ads in an archaic way. And it's just like, no, I refer to Google Ads as Google Ads. I just refuse to change my moniker.
Got it.
I love that backwards, because I love telling the story that it was AdWords when I started, and that's why I kept it the way it is, because it's just it was such a joyful time in my life, and I got very lucky. I just love that I get to do what I get to do.
That's so awesome. Well, thank you, Ameet, for being on the Partnership for Profits podcast. And we look forward to collaborating with you further. Guys, if you check out her social links, you'll see it here posted on every where our podcast is published. Thank you so much. And we will see you hopefully in one of these events sometime soon.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I had a great time.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Partnerships for Profit. We hope you've gained valuable insights on how to form profitable partnerships and take your business to the next level. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Got a partnership story to share or someone you'd like to see featured on the show? Reach out to us. Until next time, keep building those partnerships for profit.